Alert sounds and flashing lights filled the corridor. It wasn't uncommon for Jade's ship to be in this state, but most alerts are minor problems, decompressions, power failures, or engine shutdowns. The Majestic Lark was old, almost as old as Jade. She'd built her ship more than a millennia ago, after turning 27 herself. The alert was a serious problem. Fuel was leaking, spraying, out of the port engine, pouring out into space, causing a severe risk of explosion. The fluidic hydrogen could destroy half the ship if it ignites. Reaching the reactor, Jade cut through the main line, instantly cutting all power, though the results were not so immediate. Consoles and lights slowly clicking off as the remaining power in the system bled into increasingly vital components. The last to go was atmospherics. Jade did not wait for the ship to go dark, instead pushing, climbing and jumping her way to an airlock, the starboard hatch, as it would be farther from the leak. Without power, there was no way to run the decompression cycle, so she sealed the inner hatch and opened the outer one, holding onto a rail as she did. The hatch flew outward, swinging on its heavy hinge, the air evacuating in the briefest moment. The polyplastic clothing around her reacted immediately, wrapping over her hands and head, sealing in air and reflecting radiation. Jade began to climb across the hull quickly, smart cables ensuring she did not lose her grip. At one time, the Majestic Lark had been a smooth, even elegant form, but he had lived a long life, making his once smooth blue hull a dull and pitted grey, with bulges and dents so frequent as to afford many handholds. Jade quickly arrived at the fuel tank. Its ancient surface was so pitted and scarred that if there were no fuel spraying out, she would have never identified the site of the breach. The fuel was still pouring out, leaving a long trail of sparkling metallic hydrogen fuel. Jade put her hands over the hole and pressed down. Accessing her clothing control, she detached a portion of her outfit, creating a seal over the fuel, enough to stop its escape for now. The trail stopped growing and the Majestic Lark's momentum was carrying him away from the danger, soon allowing Jade to effect a more permanent fix. Placing a sealing patch over the increasingly grey polyplastic, the patch shrank into every pit and scar on the tank, smoothly sealing the leak in a permanent way. But precious fuel was drifting away, so she leapt from the hull, pushing off in the direction of the fuel and extending a pouch between her chest and arms, soon catching some of the dispersing fuel, though Jade measured only around 10 kilos recovered. Separating more of her clothing to create a container for the fuel, she turned around, a long ribbon of polyplastic sweeping wide and dragging her to face the Majestic Lark, now more than 10 kilometers away, the distance still growing. Fortunately, she had some fuel with her, so pressing the container to spray some thrust, she accelerated toward the ship. A kilo of fuel gave her enough thrust to get back, though she was not gaining all that fast, giving her time to survey the damage. Several small impactors had hit. The fuel tank breach was right beside an engine breach, the nozzle punctured midway along. 2 others had breached a cargo pod, a third neatly separating the auxiliary comms antenna. Several more had hit, but no breaches were evident, just a few more scars. It took almost an hour to catch up to the ship, smart cables grabbing the hull. Jade climbed into the portside hatch, transferring the fuel into a spare canister and stowing it in the airlock. There were a few repairs she would have to make before she could get underway. The engine was most crucial, so she gathered supplies and headed back out, soon patching and repairing the nozzle and surveying the engine for any further damage. 2 patches soon sealed the cargo pod, but she would need a new antenna to fix the auxiliary comm system. Not that it was necessary for getting back underway. Her next fix was the main power line. Having cut clean through it, she had to replace a length of the cabling, but soon the power was restored, systems coming online throughout the ship, allowing her to start the engines and get back underway. Thrust had created a sense of gravity, some 25 meters a second, but Jade was accustomed to this, allowing her to walk to the bridge and take a seat. The main comm system had received a message. It was from the UNS patrol ships. They'd issued a fine for creating a hazard in the region. It was more than the cost of the fuel she lost. As she leaned back in her chair, a warning light began blinking, telling her there was an overheating problem in the water management system. Forcing a sigh from her lips. It would wait for now. The engine burn would only last a few more minutes. She could deal with it then. For now, she just wanted to rest.